Ever tapped an app on your phone, maybe ordering food or, checking your bank balance and just stopped and thought, how on earth did they build this? Or maybe you've heard those stories, right? These massive tech projects that totally transform things while others just spectacularly fail. Well, the digital world definitely doesn't run on magic. It runs on systems. Systems that are carefully designed, built, and managed. And learning how to do that, how to bring these digital ideas to life successfully, well, that starts right here. Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the place where we take essential sources, unpack them, and really try to give you the vital insights, a shortcut to being genuinely well-informed. Today, we're diving deep into information systems project management. We're focusing specifically on how these often complex digital projects get started, how they're planned, built, and crucially, how they're successfully closed out. Now, this deep dive is definitely tailored to apply insights for courses like BCIS 3389 Systems Analysis and Design, maybe especially if you're at Tarleton State University's Dr. Sam Pack College of Business. But honestly, this is for anyone who wants to get a handle on bringing digital projects to life. Students, new project managers, or even if you're just curious about tech projects. We'll be pulling insights from Modern Systems Analysis and Design by Valacich and George, looking at some best practices from the U.S. Department of Energy, and folding in key ideas from project management and communication studies. Our mission, it's pretty simple. Equip you with practical takeaways, those aha moments that'll be super valuable for your future career, whether that's in MIS, CIS, IT, or even general business. We want to help you build those crucial skills, like applying basic economic and organizational models. It's your KO1 and KO2, understanding core systems concepts, KO3, and really mastering those project management methods, your KO5. We'll also touch on the analytical side for diagrams like use case, activity, class diagrams, SO1, SO2, SO3, and of course that vital written communication, WO1. Okay, before we really jump in, could you do us a quick favor? If you're finding these deep dives useful, please hit like, subscribe, maybe share it. Your support really helps us bring you more of these insider tips that could genuinely position you for a great future. And remember, check the description below. We always link to extra resources and our source materials there.
It's fascinating, actually. When you look at why some systems succeed and others fail, it so often comes down not just to the tech itself, right, but to the process, the systematic management of its development. It really is a journey. You're taking this abstract idea and turning it into something real, something that works. And every single step, from start to finish, needs precision, but also foresight, and importantly, adaptability. So today, we'll connect those dots. We'll look at systematic analysis, design, implementation, really focusing on the skills and processes in those first 4 stages of the system development lifecycle. We'll explore different methods, different tools, but always link the theory back to how you'd actually use it, much like the project cases you'll tackle in BCIS 3389. I think the real aha moment isn't just realizing requirements change, they always do, but seeing that a great IS project manager needs to be dynamic. It's about adaptation, constant negotiation, not just sticking rigidly to some initial plan. Embracing that change rather than fighting it, that often makes all the difference between success and, well, becoming another infamous failure story.
That's a really powerful way to put it. Okay, let's unpack this then. Let's lay the groundwork. First things first. What exactly is an information system project? Let's start with the terms, because an information system, an IS, it's way more than just the computer on your desk.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's spot on. An information system, or IS, it's this whole setup that assembles, stores, processes, and delivers information that's relevant to an organization or even society. And it does it in a way that makes the information accessible and useful to whoever needs it. But the key thing to grasp is it's not just hardware and software. Fundamentally, it's a human activity system, a social system that's supported by the technology. Think of it less like a machine and more like, an organization's nervous system, but one that learns and adapts. It's the data, sure, but also the people using it, the procedures they follow, the decisions made because of it, even the culture it helps create.
Can you give us an example? Maybe bring that abstract idea down to earth a bit.
Sure. Think about a big bank system, the one managing millions of customer accounts. That's not just a giant database, is it? It involves thousands of people, tellers, managers, analysts. It involves complex procedures for every transaction, for approvals, security checks, and a whole load of different technologies working together. Or maybe think about Amazon, how it completely changed shopping habits. That's a massive interconnected system, people. Warehouses, delivery networks, website algorithms, payment processing, customer service, all these elements enabling totally new ways of doing business. These examples really show those basic systems concepts, your KO3, in action, how they weave together people, process, and tech in organizations in our daily lives.
Okay, so that's an IS, a complex mix of people, process, data, and tech. But what makes developing or changing one a project? We use that word project for lots of things.
We do, yeah. But in this context, for information systems, it has a very specific meaning. A project is a non-routine one-time job limited by time and budget to meet a specified need of the customer. Let's break that down because it's important. First, it's temporary. It has a definite start and a definite end. Could be weeks, could be years, but it's not ongoing forever like day-to-day operations. Second, it has a specific purpose. It's designed to deliver something unique, a new system, a major upgrade, a specific result for a particular customer or sponsor. And crucially, it requires resources, people, tech, money, all allocated specifically to achieve that purpose. Getting this definition is really fundamental for applying those basic systems concepts, KO3, to how you approach real-world business problems. And it directly connects to the economic models, KO1, you need to think about for justifying the cost, and the organizational models, KO2, for how you structure the team to get it done. It's the difference between, say, running the university registration system day-to-day, which is operations, and building a completely new registration system, which is definitely a project.
Right, okay, that makes sense. Building the new thing versus running the existing thing. So bringing it all together, why do we talk about information systems project management specifically? Why not just general project management? What's so special about IS projects?
That's a great question. While the core principles of project management absolutely apply, planning, scheduling, budgeting, ISPM, information systems project management really demands extra specialized knowledge. And that's because IS projects face some pretty unique challenges. First, you've got the sheer speed of rapid changes in technology and enhancements. What you plan to use might be outdated 6 months later.
Yeah, that's relentless.
It is. Second, user expectations are incredibly dynamic. People see a cool feature on a new app, and suddenly they expect it in your system right now. And maybe the biggest thing, which the sources really hammer home, is that requirements will change during development. It's almost a guarantee. It's rarely a straight line from A to B, like maybe building a bridge. It's often iterative, looping back. So ISPM is about applying all those project management skills, the knowledge, tools, techniques specifically to these unique IS project activities, managing that constant change to meet requirements that might be, well, evolving as you build.
So it really is where the art meets the science, isn't it? You need the technical chops, but you also need this almost diplomatic skill to manage people, navigate the organization, and just constantly adapt. Sounds pretty demanding.
It absolutely is. That balance is key. So thinking about these complexities, this constant change, what does it actually take to lead one of these digital journeys? For you, the learner, maybe someone at BCIS 3389, thinking about this as a career path, what skills are totally essential? What should you be focusing on developing right now?
That's the million-dollar question, right? What are those must-have skills for someone wanting to succeed as an IS project manager in this field?
Well, looking at our sources, like Exhibit 1.2, it's clear you need a really diverse toolkit. It's not just one thing. First and foremost, probably effective communication, both speaking and writing. You've got to talk to everyone. The tech team, the executives, the end users, make things clear, avoid misunderstandings, build agreement. That directly ties into your writing outcomes, W01. Clear documentation is just as vital as a good presentation.
Makes sense. What else?
Then there's human resource management. Leading the team, keeping them motivated, sorting out conflicts, creating a good working atmosphere. You're managing people, right? Clear scope definition is huge. We'll talk more about scope creep later, but being able to clearly define what the product is and what it isn't is critical to keeping things on track. You definitely need a solid technical understanding. You don't have to be the star coder, but you need to grasp the IS aspects, the possibilities, the limitations. That connects right back to the systems analysis and design you're learning.
So tech savvy, but also people savvy and financially savvy.
Exactly. Financial management is key. Staying within budget, that's your KO1, tracking costs, making smart spending decisions. And then change management. Since requirements do change, you need a process to handle those changes without letting chaos take over. And finally, you need strong leadership, good time management, the ability to do proactive problem solving, and the foresight for proper project closure. It's a lot, but each piece is important.
So what's the big takeaway for aspiring project managers here? What's the so what?
The so what is that an effective IS project manager isn't just a techie or just a manager. You have to understand the technology, absolutely, and how it impacts the business. But you also have to understand how all these management activities, communication, scope, risk, People fit together for successful development and rollout. This is where you're directly applying those project management methodologies, your KO5, ensuring projects aren't just technically feasible, but also organizationally sound, strategically aligned, and ultimately accepted and used by the people they're meant for. You're like the conductor of a very complex orchestra.
Okay, conductor of a complex orchestra. I like that. With those fundamentals, definitions, skills under our belt, let's move on to navigating the information systems project lifecycle. We hear lifecycle thrown around a lot in systems development. What does that actually mean for an IS project? Why is it such a core idea?
It's basically a roadmap, a systematic way of progressing through distinct stages. And it's a really core concept for your course, BCIS 3389, because it brings structure and a measure of predictability to what could otherwise be a really messy process. Now, people might name the stages slightly differently, but a pretty standard model, like the one in Figure 1.6 or the Lucid Chart overview, breaks it down into 5 key phases: initiation, planning, developing, sometimes called execution implementing, which can include control, and finally, closing. This whole framework, this sequence, is all about applying those project management methodologies, KO5, to build solid software systems. It grounds the systematic analysis and design you're studying in a practical workflow. It's the game plan.
I always think of it like building a house. You wouldn't just show up with a hammer and start banging nails, right? There's a sequence, blueprints, foundation, framing, roof, electrical, plumbing.
Exactly. You wouldn't pour the foundation after putting the roof on, and you wouldn't try to roll out a new system before it's been properly designed, built, and tested. Let's take that example we mentioned, building a new modern student portal for a university. How does that initial idea, maybe just frustration with the old clunky system, turn into this major platform everyone relies on? It starts with this structured life cycle, that sequence.
Okay, let's zoom in then. Stage 1, initiation, sparking the idea. Where does a project actually begin? Before any code gets written, before detailed plans are drawn up, what kicks it all off?
This is really the genesis stage. It's where a business need, maybe a problem that needs solving or a new opportunity, is first identified and formally acknowledged. Sources like UMass Boston and Valacich emphasize this is about defining that initial idea and getting some kind of commitment to actually explore it further. It's like the first gate. Does this idea even warrant spending time and money on? For our student portal, maybe it's a task force report showing registration problems are hurting student satisfaction and maybe even enrollment numbers. That's the spark.
So what actually happens in this initiation phase? It sounds like it needs to be more than just, hey, wouldn't it be cool if?
Oh, absolutely. It's got structure. Several key things need to happen. First, the main stakeholders, students, faculty, administrators, IT folks, need to agree on a vision. What are we trying to achieve? Define the major goals and the justification. Why are we doing this? For the portal, the goal might be improve student experience and make admin stuff more efficient. Simple, but clear. Next, you identify all the stakeholders. Who cares about this project? Who's affected? And you start clarifying key team roles, even if they're just potential roles at this point. Then, a really crucial step. Estimate the preliminary cost, scope, and a broad timeline. These are just ballpark figures, high level, but they're vital for deciding if it's even feasible. And finally, it's smart to review lessons learned from past projects. Did we try something like this before? What went right? What went wrong? Learn from history.
Okay, that makes sense. Getting the basic idea, the why, the who, and a rough how much, how long. But you mentioned getting commitment. The source talks about a critical document here, the project charter. That sounds pretty formal.
It is, and it's incredibly important. The project charter is often called the major deliverable of this initiation phase. Think of it as the project's official birth certificate. It does a few key things. It formally authorizes the project to exist. It gives the project manager the authority to use organizational resources. And it documents the high-level requirements, major milestones, and how success will be measured. It sets the initial boundaries and expectations for everyone.
So what would you typically find in a project charter? What are the essential pieces?
A good charter, based on sources like UMass Boston, needs several key elements. It starts with a clear problem definition, what issue are we solving, then a high-level project description. You need specific, measurable goals, objectives, and outcomes. What will success look like? A preliminary scope is vital, what's in the project, and just as importantly, what's out. This helps manage expectations later. It identifies stakeholder roles and responsibilities, lists the major deliverables, sets high-level milestones and rough timeframes. Critically, it states the funding authority who's paying. and any initial assumptions the project relies on. It's the foundational agreement.
What's the real practical takeaway here for our listeners, maybe thinking about their own projects or careers? Getting this stage right seems fundamental.
It really is. Spending the time to do initiation properly, to develop that solid project charter, significantly increases the chances of success later on. It directly forces you to apply those basic economic models. KO1, is this project actually worth the investment? And the organizational models, KO2, does it fit our strategy? Does it have support? If you skimp on initiation, if that charter is vague or missing, you're essentially building on quicksand. Or worse, you might build something fantastic that nobody actually needed or wanted in the first place. It provides that essential clarity and mandate.
Okay, mandate secured, project charter signed. We know what we're aiming for, roughly. Now, how do we figure out how to actually get there? That brings us to stage 2, planning, charting the course. This feels like where the real heavy lifting begins.
You got it. This is the blueprint phase, where the abstract idea from initiation gets translated into a concrete, detailed roadmap. Valacich and George call it defining clear, discrete activities and the work needed to complete each activity. It's moving from, we need a new student portal, to, okay, here are the 50 specific steps, who's doing them, how long they'll take, and what resources they need. It's getting granular.
Sounds intensive. What are the core activities that happen during this planning stage? This must be where project managers earn their stripes.
Oh yeah, there's a lot packed in here.
Yeah.
It usually starts with describing the project scope, alternatives, and feasibility in much more detail than initiation. What exactly will this student portal do? Which features are in version 1, which are out? You identify potential technical approaches, and you really dig into feasibility technical. Can we build it? Economic, can we afford it? KO1 relevant here. Operational, will it work in our environment? And this detailed scope definition is your primary weapon against.
Ah, here it comes. That notorious creeping scope. You mentioned it earlier. What exactly is it, and why is it such a nightmare for project managers?
It's maybe the most persistent headache in IS projects. Scope creep is when the project's requirements gradually expand after the initial agreement. Stakeholders ask for just one more feature, or new ideas pop up during development. Sounds harmless, maybe, but if you don't manage it tightly with a formal change control process, these small additions pile up. Suddenly your budget is blown, your schedule is shot, and the team is burned out trying to deliver more than was originally planned. That meticulously defined scope statement from the planning phase, agreed upon by everyone, is your baseline. Any change needs evaluation. What's the impact on cost? KO1. On time, on resources. It helps you manage expectations and have those tough conversations about priorities. You need discipline to say, not now, or that's phase 2.
Okay, so nailing down the scope is job 1. What else happens in planning after you've, hopefully, contained the creep?
Right. So with scope defined, you divide the project into manageable tasks. This usually involves creating a work breakdown structure, or WBS. You break the big project goal, build student portal into smaller pieces like design login screen, develop course registration module, integrate payment gateway, then break those down further. It creates a hierarchy of tasks. Then you estimate resources and create a resource plan. Who do we need? Developers, designers, testers, database admins, what equipment, servers, software licenses. This might also be where you consider outsourcing or offshoring parts of the work, a big topic in itself, as the textbook notes. Next comes developing a preliminary schedule. How long will each task take? When can they start and finish? This is where tools like Gantt charts become essential.
Gantt charts, those bar charts showing tasks over time.
Exactly. They visually represent the schedule, showing task durations, start and end dates, and dependencies which tasks have to finish before others can start. Network diagrams are also used to show these task interrelationships and help identify the critical path.
Critical path, what's that about?
Critical path scheduling is a key technique. It helps you find the shortest possible time to complete the project. You identify the sequence of tasks where any delay in any task on that path directly delays the entire project's finish date. So for our portal, maybe designing the UI and setting up the database can happen in parallel, but maybe both have to be done before integration testing can start. If the database setup takes longer than the UI design, that database task is on the critical path. Focusing on tasks on the critical path is vital for keeping the project on schedule.
Got it. So manage the critical path closely. What else is in the planning toolkit?
You also need to develop a communication plan. Who needs what information? How often? How will it be delivered? Email updates, weekly meetings, a shared dashboard. Getting this right is crucial. W01. Then, identifying and assessing risk. What could go wrong? technical glitches, vendor delays, user resistance. You brainstorm potential risks and develop contingency plans. What's plan B if risk X happens? You create a preliminary budget detailing all the planned expenses against the expected benefits or value, KO1. And all of this culminates in setting a baseline project plan. This is your initial agreed-upon roadmap for scope, schedule, and cost. It's the benchmark against which you'll measure progress during execution.
Wow, that's a serious amount of work before anyone writes a line of code. How does this deep planning connect back to the learning outcomes for students, say, in BCIS 3389?
It connects everywhere. Planning is where you apply those basic organizational models, KO2, to structure your team and define roles. It's the absolute foundation for implementing project management methodologies, KO5. The WBS, scheduling, risk management are all core PM techniques. And the detailed understanding you gain during planning directly feeds into creating things like use case diagrams, mapping user interactions SO1, activity diagrams, modeling business processes SO2, and class diagrams, structuring the data SO3. The plan provides the context and requirements for that detailed analysis and design work. Good planning isn't just bureaucracy, it's risk reduction and setting the stage for success.
Okay, the stage is set. Plans are locked, as much as they can be. Risks considered, budget approved. Now for the part everyone thinks of, the actual building. Stage 3, development execution, bringing it to life. What happens now?
Right, this is where the rubber meets the road, the executing phase, as it's often called. This is where the team actually does the work defined in the plan to create the information system. It's about turning those plans, those diagrams, those specifications into tangible reality. For our student portal, this is when developers are heads down coding, designers are crafting the interface, database administrators are building the structures, testers are writing test cases. It's the active creation phase.
Sounds like a busy time. What are the key activities the project manager is juggling during execution? It can't just be sitting back and watching the code compile.
Definitely not. The main job is executing the baseline project plan. This involves getting the resources assigned, making sure the right people are working on the right tasks, getting new team members up to speed. But a huge part is monitoring project progress against that baseline. Are we on schedule? Are we staying within budget? Are the deliverables meeting the quality standards? You're constantly comparing reality to the plan. And when reality inevitably deviates, you're managing changes to the baseline plan. If scope needs to adjust or a technical problem arises, you use that change control process we talked about to assess the impact and formally update the plan if approved. Keeping the project workbook up to date is also vital. This central repository holds all project documents, plans, status reports, change requests, meeting minutes. It's the project's official record, WO1. And of course, constantly communicating project status to all the stakeholders, keeping everyone in the loop, celebrating wins, but also being transparent about challenges.
Now, you mentioned earlier, and the source material highlights this too, like in Figure 1.7, that real projects are rarely perfectly linear. There are iterations, maybe jumps back to earlier stages. How do you manage that seeming chaos during execution when you've got this baseline plan?
That's the reality, isn't it? The plan is essential, but it's a guide, not gospel written in stone. That's why the monitoring and change management aspects are so critical during execution. You might uncover a technical assumption was wrong, or user feedback during early testing necessitates a design change. You don't just ignore it, you use the change management process. Assess the impact, discuss alternatives, get stakeholder buy-in, update the plan. It requires flexibility, constant communication, and robust quality assurance processes built in along the way. It reinforces that idea of project management being both art and science, the science of planning and tracking, and the art of adapting, problem-solving, and leading through unexpected turns. You're constantly course-correcting.
Okay, so the team navigates the twists and turns, the system gets built, tested, maybe refined through iteration. But we're still not done, right? What's next? This brings us to stage 4, implementation, control, launching, and integrating. Sounds like the big reveal.
Exactly. The system might be technically done from a development perspective, but it's not truly finished until it's successfully delivered and integrated into the organization. This stage, as Valacich notes, is where the product actually gets handed over to the customer or users. It's all about ensuring the system is truly ready for prime time, that it works smoothly within the existing environment, and that people can actually use it effectively. For our student portal, this is the go live moment, moving it from the Veritas test servers to being accessible by actual students and staff.
So what needs to happen to ensure that launch goes smoothly? Because a technically perfect system can still fail if the implementation is botched, right?
Absolutely. Implementation is make or break. Key activities here include carrying out all final tests, especially user acceptance testing, UAT. This is where real users put the system through its paces in a realistic setting to confirm it meets their needs and works as expected. Simultaneously, you're finalizing and distributing instructions and user manuals. Comprehensive documentation is key. A really big piece, especially for something complex like a new portal, is planning and conducting training for the main users. And interestingly, the success of this training is often linked to how involved users were throughout the whole development process. If they felt ownership earlier, they're more receptive now. You also have the technical task of integrating the new system with existing ones, maybe the finance system, the library system, the course catalog. This needs careful planning to minimize disruption to ongoing operations. Data migration might be a big part of this. And finally, once the system is live and stable, you begin releasing project resources. Team members move to new projects. Equipment is returned or reassigned. Final invoices are processed.
It's the formal transition from the temporary project structure back to ongoing operations.
Okay, the system is live, users are trained, it's integrated. Now can we celebrate and move on? Not quite, it seems. There's still stage 5. Closing the finish line. Why is this stage, which feels like it happens after the real work is done, still so important?
It's so tempting to just disband the team and declare victory once the system is live, but proper closedown is crucial. As Valacich defines it, it's the final phase that focuses on bringing a project to an end. Why bother? 2 main reasons. First, administrative tidiness, ensuring all contracts are closed, finances settled, documentation archived. Second, and arguably more important, is organizational learning. This phase is where you formally capture what went well, what didn't, and ensure the organization benefits from that experience on future projects. It's about harvesting the wisdom gained.
So what are the key activities in formally closing out an IS project? What does harvesting the wisdom actually look like in practice?
It involves several specific actions. You need formal customer acceptance, the official sign-off saying, yes, this project is complete and meets our requirements, end quote. You typically evaluate project team members, providing feedback for their performance reviews and acknowledging contributions. Any outstanding vendor contracts or temporary employment specific to the project need to be formally terminated and all payments finalized. All the project documents and forms need to be archived systematically, usually in that project workbook we mentioned, W01. This creates the historical record. And then, critically, you conduct a project audit or post-mortem review. The main goal here, as the source emphasizes, isn't finger-pointing. It's about documenting lessons learned. What processes worked well? What tools were effective? Where did we run into trouble? How can we avoid those issues next time? This generates insights for the whole organization.
That sounds like a solid process. And it's interesting you mentioned the U.S. Department of Energy earlier. They seem to have some very rigorous closeout practices. What can we learn from their approach, even if we're not building particle accelerators?
Yeah, the DOE Office of Science has a very mature process, especially for their large, complex projects, and there are definitely lessons there. They use a key milestone called CD4 approval, which basically means, okay, this project is complete and ready for operations. It's a formal gate. A huge emphasis for them is verifying key performance parameters, KPPs. These are specific, measurable objectives defined very early in the project, like the facility is ready for occupancy or a specific technical capability has been demonstrated. They're big lesson learned. Define these KPPs as early as humanly possible. Don't wait until the end. They also conduct formal readiness reviews, making sure everything is truly ready before flipping the switch. And they require a detailed transition to operations plan. This spells out exactly how the handover will happen, who takes over, what manuals are needed, what the operating budget is, ensuring a smooth transition. And the documentation is serious. They require a project closeout report, PCR, submitted in stages, W01, and a dedicated lessons learned document, also W01, capturing insights from the entire project lifecycle. It's very structured knowledge capture.
Wow, that is thorough. But even with all that structure, they must still face challenges in closing projects outright. What kind of hurdles do they mention?
They do. Some common ones they highlight include the ongoing difficulty of formulating truly effective KPPs early enough, making sure all that required documentation, PCR, lessons learned, as-built drawings, O&M manuals is actually done before CD4 approval, which can be tough when everyone wants to move on. Sometimes site visits are needed to confirm physical completion. Ensuring enough money is left to cover all final bills is crucial. They also caution about being aware of last-minute trade-offs that might push unresolved issues or extra work onto the operations team, creating future problems. And a general warning against being overly optimistic and trying to make closeout more complicated than it needs to be. Find the right balance.
So zooming out, what's the real so what of taking closeout this seriously? It really shifts it from just paperwork to something more strategic, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It transforms closeout from an administrative chore into a vital organizational feedback loop. It's how companies genuinely learn from both successes and failures. Capturing that knowledge, analyzing it, and making it accessible helps improve how they apply project management methodologies, KO5, on the next project and the one after that. It builds organizational memory. Without it, you risk making the same mistakes over and over again, essentially relearning hard lessons every time.
Okay, we've walked through the entire life cycle, and one thing that kept popping up in every single stage, from initiation right through to closeout, was communication. You called it the lifeline earlier. Why is communication considered so fundamentally important in project management, maybe even more so than technical skills sometimes?
Because it literally connects everything. Our sources call it the linking process of management and the primary means by which people obtain and exchange information. Think about it. It's the action component, the thing that integrates all the different pieces and people working towards the project goal. Imagine our student portal project again. Without clear, constant communication, developers might build the wrong thing, administrators won't know when to prepare for the launch, and users won't understand how it works. The best plan in the world is useless if it's not communicated effectively. Talented teams fall apart without it.
Okay, so it connects things, but what makes it so important? What does good communication actually do for a project?
It does a lot. It provides clarity, cutting through ambiguity and preventing the misunderstandings and conflicts that derail projects. It builds relationships and trust. When people feel heard and informed, they trust the process and each other more. It creates commitment. By encouraging feedback and involving people, they feel more invested in the outcome. It defines expectations clearly so everyone knows what's required. It helps manage organizational conflict constructively. And here's a really key point from the sources. Information and communication represent power in organizations.
Okay, hang on. Communication is power. Let's unpack that. What does that mean in the context of a project?
It means that how information flows, who has access to it, and how it's interpreted significantly influences decisions, actions, and relationships within the project team and the wider organization. Managers spend most of their time communicating, right? When they share accurate, timely information, it empowers team members to make good decisions and feel part of the process. But when information is hoarded, or unclear, or misinterpreted, it creates bottlenecks, fuels rumors, erodes trust, and leads to poor outcomes. So the project manager isn't just passing messages along, they're actively designing the information flow. That design inherently shapes the power dynamics. Understanding this is really core to grasping those organizational models, your KO2. How information moves shapes how the organization functions.
That's a really insightful way to think about it, the PM as an architect of information flow. So given how critical this is, how do project managers actually ensure this vital flow happens effectively? How do you build a communication strategy?
You need a plan, a communication management plan. It basically addresses the classic 5 W's and 1 H for project information. Why are we communicating this purpose? What information needs sharing? Status, risks, decisions. When does it need to be shared? Frequency. Where or through what channels? Email, meeting, tool. Who needs this specific information? Which stakeholders?
Yeah.
And how should it be delivered format? Thinking through these questions forces you to be intentional about communication.
And what are the different ways, the different methods project managers can use? It's obviously more than just sending emails.
Oh yeah, definitely. You've got oral communication, face-to-face chats, team meetings, phone calls, video conferences. And a key part of this is active listening and giving good feedback, something managers apparently often struggle with. It's a two-way street. Then written communication. Emails, formal reports, requirements, documents, meeting minutes, the project workbook. Essential for creating records, formal instructions, and detailed explanations, WO1. Don't forget nonverbal and visual communication. Body language, tone of voice, paralanguage, charts, diagrams. These convey feelings and can make complex information easier to grasp, but usually need verbal or written backup in a professional setting. And increasingly, digital and social media. Things like Slack, Teams, shared online workspaces. These allow for rapid information sharing but require leaders to be digitally savvy and understand the dynamics of these platforms, fostering creativity and collaboration in a different way.
You mentioned a practical example earlier, the weekly reporting method. How does something simple like that fit into the overall strategy?
It's a great example of a structured, routine communication channel. Employees send concise updates, upwards progress, problems, plans. Managers consolidate these and can share summaries back down or across teams. It ensures regular information flow, both up and down the chain. The key is finding methods, whether simple like weekly emails or using sophisticated project management software, that ensure the right information gets to the right people consistently and efficiently. These tools can really streamline communication.
Okay, we've covered the how and why of communication, but who are we communicating with? You keep mentioning stakeholders, these interested parties. Let's dive into managing stakeholders. This sounds like it could be just as complex as managing the tech.
Often more complex. Stakeholders, broadly, are just individuals at all levels with interest in the project and its final product. And they are absolutely critical. Their support, their engagement, even their opposition can literally determine if a project succeeds or fails. Getting them on board is essential.
So who falls under this umbrella of stakeholder? Can you give us some examples, maybe thinking about our student portal again?
Sure, the sources break them down into useful categories. You've got internal users, the actual students and faculty who will use the portal every day, end users, maybe the registrar's office staff who rely on it for their jobs, business users, their managers, business management, and even the university leadership, ensuring it aligns with strategic goals, business strategy management. Then external users, prospective students applying through the portal, customers, maybe government agencies needing enrollment data, information users, or perhaps partner universities needing some access, trusted external users. And don't forget the IS development side, the software engineers building it, the analysts designing it, the business analyst bridging the gap, the project manager, IT leadership, the CIO. It can even extend to shareholders or the wider community, depending on the project's impact. It's a big network.
Wow, that is a lot of different people, likely with very different priorities and perspectives. How on earth do you manage all those potentially conflicting interests? Is there a systematic way to approach it?
There is. It's called stakeholder analysis. It's often done early in the project, maybe as a brainstorming session. The goal is to evaluate the relative importance of each stakeholder if there is conflict. You basically map them out, often on a grid, based on two key things: their power or influence over the project, and their interest or attitude towards it. So someone with high power and high interest, like the university provost, who controls the budget and desperately wants this portal, needs very close management, frequent updates, lots of engagement. Someone with low power and low interest, maybe an alumnus who rarely interacts with the university systems, might just need occasional monitoring or general updates. It helps you prioritize your communication and engagement efforts.
What's the real aha moment here? What's the key insight for managing this diverse group effectively beyond just mapping them on a grid?
The real key, I think, is fostering genuine collaboration. Breaking down that us versus them wall that can easily build up between, say, the IT team and the business users. When you genuinely involve users throughout the process, get their feedback early, and often make them feel like partners in building the solution, they take ownership. They become advocates, not critics. They provide invaluable insights that make the final system much better and more likely to be adopted successfully. This is a direct application of those organizational models, KO2, Understanding Group Dynamics and Effective Communication, WO1. It's about building bridges and creating a shared sense of purpose for a better outcome.
Bridges, not walls. I like that. Okay, we've covered the mechanics, the life cycle, the people dynamics, the communication lifeline, but there's one more crucial layer: the ethical compass of project management. Ethics. Isn't that a bit abstract for a tech project?
Not at all. It's incredibly concrete. Ethical issues, as the source material points out, are prevalent in everyday project management decisions. Think about it. Providing estimates for time and cost, evaluating how team members are performing, communicating honestly about deadlines, handling sensitive data. Ethics are woven into all of that. It really boils down to distinguishing right from wrong in every decision. The core principles are things like trust, integrity, professional conduct, taking responsibility for your actions, fairness, honesty, and always striving to improve yourself professionally. These aren't just nice-to-haves. They're foundational for reliable project delivery and building a trustworthy reputation.
So let's take a common scenario. What happens when there's pressure maybe from management, maybe from the client to, spin the status report, to give the good news, even if the reality is a bit messy? That must be a tough spot for a PM.
It's a classic ethical tightrope walk. And the guidance is crystal clear. It is unacceptable to falsify these estimates or to exaggerate benefits. Full stop. Project managers have a responsibility to always contemplate the impact of their decisions. How will this affect the team, the stakeholders, the project's credibility? How will this decision look if it comes to light later? It means being transparent, even when the news isn't great. Reporting potential delays or budget issues early allows for corrective action. Hiding them usually just makes the eventual problem much, much worse. Professional bodies like PMI, Project Management Institute, and IEECM have detailed codes of conduct that emphasize integrity, honesty, and accountability. These codes provide a really valuable framework for navigating those difficult situations and making the ethical choice, even when it's the harder choice in the moment.
So for our listeners, the students learning this now, what are some practical ways they can start developing their own ethical compass for when they face these situations?
Exhibit 1.9 in the source has some really good, simple self-reflection questions. Things like, have I been true to the project's purpose? Have I treated everyone fairly? Am I consistent in my decisions? Am I open to suggestions, even critical ones? Have I admitted mistakes when I've made them? Asking yourself these questions regularly helps build that ethical muscle, and they all point towards building trust. Trust is the absolute bedrock of leadership. People will follow, support, and work hard for leaders they trust implicitly, and that trust is earned through consistent ethical behavior over time.
So what's the bottom line here? Why is being ethical not just about doing the right thing personally, but critical for project success and a PM's career?
Because while technical skills are vital, a lapse in ethics is much harder to recover from. If you don't know a specific technology, you can learn it or hire someone who does. But if you lose the trust of your team, your stakeholders, your management, that's incredibly damaging and difficult, maybe impossible to repair. Your ethical conduct directly impacts team morale, stakeholder confidence, the project's reputation, and ultimately its success. It defines you as a leader. Competence gets you in the door, but integrity keeps you there and allows you to truly lead effectively. So we've really covered a lot of ground today, haven't we? We journeyed through that whole IS project lifecycle from the initial spark and initiation through the detailed planning and the dynamic execution, right up to harvesting those crucial lessons in closeout. We've hammered home that project success isn't just about cool tech or clever code. It's fundamentally about managing the people, the process, the communication, and always leading with an unwavering ethical compass. Hopefully you now have a much stronger foundational understanding of what it takes to manage IS projects, the specific skills you need to cultivate, and that systematic approach required to navigate these complex digital landscapes. These insights are really designed to help you directly apply those basic economic KO1 and organizational models, KO2, get a grip on systems concepts, KO3, and master those project management methodologies, KO5. And of course, sharpening your communication, W1, and analytical skills for those diagrams, SO1, SO2, SO3, all vital stuff for BCIS 3389, whatever career path you choose.
Absolutely. So the next time you use a really slick app or maybe hear about a big government IT project going off the rails, you'll have a much better sense of the incredible amount of management, planning, human interaction, or maybe the lack of it that shaped its destiny. And that, unfortunately, is all the time we have for this particular deep dive. Thank you so much for joining us, for investing this time in your own growth. If you found this valuable, please do us that favor. Hit like, subscribe, maybe share it with classmates or colleagues who might benefit. It really helps us reach more people with these career-boosting insights. And don't forget to check the description below for links to our sources and other valuable resources.
Remember, behind every single tap, every swipe, every click on your screen, there's a system that someone, somewhere envisioned, analyzed, designed, and led through to completion. What system will you envision, analyze, and lead next? Until next time, keep building the future, one process at a time.